There is one protein sitting in your refrigerator right now that researchers studying aging have connected to something most people never see coming. People over 60 who ate this protein every single morning kept their muscle, kept their strength, and stayed independent decades longer than people eating the same protein at the wrong time of day. That is not a small difference. That is the difference between climbing stairs at 80 and needing help getting out of a chair. And here is what should bother you. Most people over 50 are already eating what looks like a perfectly healthy diet. Enough protein, balanced meals, everything a doctor would approve of. And they are still losing muscle year after year without understanding why. Because somewhere around your late 40 seconds, your body quietly changes the rules. The food does not change, your biology does. Before I go further, do me a small favor. Hit that like button, subscribe if you have not already, and drop a comment telling me your age and where you are watching from right now. It genuinely helps this reach the people who need it most. Now let me explain what is actually happening inside your body after 50. Every single day, your muscles are being broken down and rebuilt simultaneously. In your younger years, this process runs smoothly. Protein comes in, tissue gets repaired faster than it degrades. But somewhere in your late 40 seconds, something shifts. Scientists call it anabolic resistance. Your muscles become less responsive to protein. The same meal that used to build muscle easily now barely registers. And this is the part almost nobody explains properly. It is not that your body stops using protein after a certain age. It is that your muscles now demand a much louder signal before they agree to start rebuilding. Think of it like a lock that has gotten stiffer over the years. The key still fits, but you need to turn it harder. And that key has a name. It is an amino acid called leucine. Leucine is not just another building block your body uses for repair. It functions closer to an ignition switch. When leucine enters your bloodstream in high enough concentration, it activates a specific pathway inside your muscle cells called mTOR. And mTOR is essentially the master switch for something called muscle protein synthesis, which is the actual process your body uses to construct new muscle tissue. Without enough leucine arriving at once, that switch does not flip. The protein you ate gets used for other things, or simply passes through, without ever triggering the rebuilding response your muscles desperately need. This is why two people can eat the exact same amount of protein in a day and get completely different results. One person's muscles rebuild, the other person's muscles quietly continue to shrink. The difference is not how much protein they ate. The difference is whether enough leucine arrived in a single sitting to actually flip that switch. And this is where the egg becomes genuinely remarkable. Eggs are unusually dense in leucine relative to their total protein content, denser than most people realize. A modest serving of eggs delivers enough leucine to trigger mTOR activation, more effectively than many other protein sources people commonly reach for. But knowing that eggs contain leucine is only half the story, because when you eat them, changes the outcome almost as much as what you eat. And this is the piece that almost nobody explains when they simply tell you to eat more protein as you get older. Overnight, while you sleep, your body goes somewhere between 8 and sometimes 10 hours without any protein at all. During that entire stretch, your body has been quietly breaking down muscle tissue for energy, especially in older adults, because an aging body defaults to breaking down muscle faster than a younger one does. By the time you wake up, your muscles are sitting in what researchers sometimes describe as a mildly catabolic state, meaning breakdown has been running ahead of rebuilding for hours without interruption. At the same time, your cortisol levels are spiking. This is a completely normal hormonal pattern called the cortisol awakening response. And cortisol on its own pushes your body further toward breaking down tissue for energy. This is the exact moment your muscles are most sensitive, most primed, most ready to receive that leucine signal and flip the switch toward rebuilding instead of continuing to break down. Eat that same protein at dinner instead after a full day of eating, and the response is real but significantly blunted. Your body is simply not as hungry for the signal at 8 inches the evening as it is at 7 inches the morning. So what does this actually look like in practice? The research points toward roughly 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein at breakfast being the threshold where muscle protein synthesis gets meaningfully triggered in an older adult. 3 large eggs provide somewhere around 18 to 21 grams of protein on their own, which is a strong start, but often not quite enough by itself to hit that full threshold. So many people add a small serving of Greek yogurt on the side, a slice of whole grain toast, or a glass of milk to round things out. The eggs do not need to be fancy. Scrambled, boiled, poached, or fried in a small amount of olive oil, all of them work. What matters far more than the cooking method is simply making sure they show up on your plate in the morning consistently most days of the week. Now, let me address something directly, because a lot of people have spent the last few decades being told that eggs are dangerous for your cholesterol. And that advice has created an entire generation of people who are genuinely afraid of the one food their aging muscles need most. Most current research has moved significantly away from treating dietary cholesterol from eggs as the villain it was once assumed to be. That said, I want to be responsible here. If you have kidney disease, gout, or any condition affecting how your body processes protein, please talk to your doctor before making changes. This guidance is meant for generally healthy adults, not as a replacement for individual medical advice. For most people watching this, a few eggs most mornings is simply food. Ordinary, affordable, accessible food being used at the right time for a very specific biological purpose. And that purpose extends far beyond just looking strong or carrying groceries. Because muscle tissue is not just tissue that helps you move. It functions almost like an organ in its own right. It releases chemical signals that regulate your blood sugar. It influences inflammation throughout your body. And emerging research suggests it even influences brain health and cognitive resilience as you age. This is part of why preserved muscle mass keeps showing up again and again in longevity research, not just as a marker of physical strength, but as one of the single strongest predictors of how long you live and how well you live during those years. Low muscle mass, a condition called sarcopenia, predicts hospitalization, falls, loss of independence, and earlier death far more reliably than almost any other measurement doctors routinely check. Preserve the muscle, and you preserve far more than strength. You preserve your ability to stay in your own home, to pick up your own grandchildren, to remain in every meaningful sense yourself. So here's what I want you to do tomorrow morning, not next week, tomorrow. Crack 2 or 3 eggs into a pan before you check your phone, before the day pulls you in 6 directions, and eat them. Your body is listening right now, every single morning, waiting for you to send it the signal that it is still worth rebuilding. If this kind of science-backed breakdown is something you want more of, subscribe to the channel and share this with anyone over 50 inches your life, because this is exactly the kind of information that only helps if it actually reaches the people who need it.